Welcome to the Content Podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates. This episode of the Content Magazine podcast is brought to you by Bonfire, a Silicon Valley digital agency building elevated websites for ambitious brands. Find out more about Bonfire at bonfire.com.
Hello?
Today we talk with Chris Jalufka. He's an artist, writer, and the founder of Evil Tinder, an online magazine that focuses on the working artist. Hey Chris, how you doing? This is Daniel.
Daniel, how you doing, man?
I am doing great. I know we were talking and we haven't seen each other since March of last year.
Yes.
Crazy.
And that was, I used to see all the time in San Jose. I was going up to San Jose once or twice a week, and now...
Yeah, I know. We would get drinks at Fountainhead and stuff like that. I was just thinking about that, and I can't believe how much time has gone by without me seeing you. I'm sad.
It was definitely a joy to go up there, but
yeah. So
soon.
Yeah. So then this last year, okay. Now we met when let's see, you were still with the opera, right? At that particular time, doing
at that point, I was still with Opera San Jose.
Right, and so your role with them was marketing and design. Is that right?
It was. I was the communications manager, which was basically all of the graphic design work, and then any sort of event outside of the actual opera themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was all marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Which was super fun, but
yeah, that's cool. So but you've had a side project called Evil Tinder for how long? When did you launch that kind of like online magazine?
2011.
2011. Okay. And it specifically focuses on kind of like illustrators, design, creatives and artists, correct?
Yeah. And I wanted to focus on the working artist, specifically not a fine artist, not like a painter that's going to make $1 million off their painting, but someone who's selling stuff to magazines and just, selling posters and kind of your average. Yeah. Cause I think that's where the bulk of artists end up at.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting philosophy because it's, of course the work that you're doing, they're all artists and they're artists, but yeah, when you do a job specifically for clients so that you make a living with your art, I mean, that's an interesting thing. And that's what you called it, Evil Tinder, right? Because we all kind of...
Yeah, and it was Evil Tinder started, there's probably a string of horrible blog spots I started from 2004 on. I just got, because you come up with an idea and you're like, oh, that sounds like a great website. Yeah. And then I do it, and then I was like, oh, this isn't going in. I can't do this for long. So
Yeah.
So whenever I started Evil Tinder, I just kind of thought it was going to be, I'll focus at first, the first idea was I'm just going to focus on everyday people doing their jobs.
Yeah. So not even artists so much?
It was basically, because I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs and really happy with their work, but it's nothing glamorous.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, so I thought, how long can that go? So I just I listened to a song and I misheard that the lyric says Evil Tinder, and I was like, that'll work.
Really?
Yeah, it's available.
So wait. Okay, so stop right there. So what was the song lyric that you misinterpreted?
It was a song by the Handsome Furs, which is this synth rock duo. And the guy kind of has a distinctive voice, and he was singing about legal tender, obviously. And then but he didn't really pronounce the L because I don't know. So it was just one of those things, a project. I didn't think I was going to keep doing it. And then, and then as I kept going, cause it's on WordPress. Yeah. And WordPress used to have this page, their front page, where they would have freshly pressed. So you could go to the freshly pressed page of WordPress, and it would show you everything that's been published on WordPress the last week or so, and the top 10, and what they deemed the top 10 articles to read.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And a few things I wrote were put there a couple times, and I was like, oh, okay. So
you hit the big time. Yeah.
I was like, okay, that then, and one of them was kind of the basis of the idea behind just working people was I'm a huge Food Network fan and all that stuff. And then you see, and I've worked in restaurants, and you see like the cult of food
Yeah.
shows always ends up being like the chef is a celebrity, chef is this, but I'm like, that's just a regular job,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started thinking like, well, what about the dishwashers and the waiters and the bar and the bus boys? Like a lot of people like do really cool. I mean, it's not as attractive as being the chef, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
a great dishwasher. So I kind of wrote about that. Like, yes, we should celebrate these people doing this job, but how about all these other people that are also important?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that made it there. And then another one I actually wrote. It was an interview with the artist I knew in San Francisco.
Hmm.
So I
Okay.
was like, oh, okay. So I just kept, and then yeah,
Yeah. So then, okay. So you started it to kind of like highlight kind of like the everyman-ish, if you way, but then,
yeah,
and it's obviously morphed way more into illustrators, even, well, you do models,
photographers.
photographers, right? So how did that? What was the morphing then, going from kind of like the average Joe to the artist who's working to make a living?
Yeah, I think in about 2010 or about 2011 to 12 when it was going, um, one of my I had written a script that was in the Austin Film Festival.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to go to the Austin Film Festival and talk to people because my script's in competition. So I went, and then at the same time, one of my artist friends from San Francisco said, I have a painting in this show at a gallery in Austin, and I said, well, I'll be in Austin. I'll go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at the Mondo Gallery, and I go in there, and it's just like a poster show that has a few paintings in it. And as soon as I saw like the first poster, I was like, "Oh man, I really miss." Because I used to do screen printing and printmaking, like that's what I went to school for.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to force the film thing to happen. Um, I would go to LA and get any kind of job, and then move back home. Oh, but so like, and I just saw once I saw that poster, I was like, "Oh my god, I miss it," because you can see the layers of ink, and you can tell like how hard it is to do. And then,
Yeah.
so then I just started interviewing or reaching out to the artists that I saw in that show,
Yeah.
like the hows and whys. And then it seemed to be like, okay, like that fits in with the core idea of the site in the first place was to focus on just people and their jobs. Because I feel like, at least for me, what I do is part of who I am,
Right. Yeah.
so, and and some people are really proud of the things they do, and that's awesome, and that should be celebrated and highlighted. And then I
Yeah.
realized, okay, like I can get that, but put it on these poster artists and these illustrators who are making movie posters or making gig posters or
Mm-hmm.
doing editorial work for the New Yorker. And
Yeah.
it just kind of opened up like, okay, yeah, it's where I feel like it's where I met
It's your
I
passion
found,
or
yeah, I
your
found, yeah,
focus. Yeah. Yeah.
I found my niche, and I
Yeah.
found it after
I love.
trying, after
Yeah.
trying to do so many different things where you're like, okay, I have
Yeah.
all these different interests. What is
Yeah.
going to work?
I love it. And then I remember seeing, I guess, after you told me about her, I don't know if I actually had seen it before, but in some ways I'm jealous because, you know what I mean? Like you don't have like I somewhat have a mission with a boundary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County, but you can interview an artist, an illustrator from anywhere. And
Yeah.
so that really, I'm like, oh, dang, that's so awesome. Yeah. So who's someone that you have interviewed or that you featured that were like starstruck and super excited about?
You know what? Like, it all kind of happened really fast because I thought I was going to have to interview, not have to, but I was like, okay, I'll start with my own artists, circle of artist friends I knew from
Mm-hmm.
college and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'll use those to show other artists and they'll want to do it.
Yeah.
But I think right out the gate, I just emailed everybody I kind of did it one by one because I didn't want to commit myself if everybody said yes at the same time.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah. Pace
so
yourself.
yeah. The first person I remember reaching out to, I'm always surprised when people say yes. But I
Right. Yeah.
remember Kevin Tong, who's an illustrator. He was out of LA, now he's in Austin. But because his was the poster I saw at the Mondo Gallery, and I was like, oh my God, that is an amazing poster.
Yeah.
He had a Bride of Frankenstein poster, and I just loved it. And then I tried to buy it, but they don't. But I was going back to California. They wouldn't ship it, and then I went online, and it had already sold out. So
Oh wow, yeah.
And so I reached out to him, and actually now we're like good friends. Yeah, because then I'll go to Comic-Con, I'll go to various conventions and galleries, just because it's at those places where you get, like, Comic-Con is where you'll meet, like, the comic book artists that you've never met are going to be there. So it's kind of yeah.
So
like
so and you focus. It seems like you tend to focus more, and this is probably because of your own passion, a little bit more, kind of like on illustrators and. Right, and is that because of your history with screen printing? And
I think so, yeah, because I wanted it to be also because I realized there's enough people focusing on fine art.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't really have anything to add.
Okay.
Which is, if the conversation, if everybody's having the same conversation about Banksy, then I don't really need to.
Right.
I'm just going to be So, and whenever I was looking up stuff about these poster artists, a lot of it was about. Because they're highly collectible, which means they go up in value, which means so a lot of the conversation was about the price and how to get this, how to get that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'll just ignore. I can easily ignore that stuff and just focus on the art. And then it turned. Actually, a lot of my readers now, I feel like, are the artists themselves.
Yeah. I would think so. I think you would have a big audience of artists that are curious about other artists, I would think.
Yeah, because they'll give tips and they'll explain, and I like to break down, like, rather than focus on. I mean, it depends on who the artist is, but sometimes I'll just focus on one poster.
Yeah,
and we talk about one poster.
Yeah,
and hopefully there's something there to talk about. But I usually, I tend to write extensive notes and then plan it out pretty well.
Yeah.
So it's like, and if I can tell pretty quickly if there's going to be anything interesting there.
Yeah. So then for you, how would you, would you say you're primarily a writer then? Because you've written these interviews, done these interviews, you've written for different magazines, including Content Magazine.
Yes.
And would you say, and you said that you were trying to do screenplays.
Yeah.
Right. But how would you explain your kind of your art form that you work in?
I feel like I'm a writer, which feels really weird to say because it's one of those things, like, I've always wanted to be. I'm like, wait, am I one now? Like, when is it okay to say that, and I'm not just taking credit?
Well, you've been published several times.
Yeah, I think, but I wouldn't say, like, I'm not a journalist. I pretty much focus on nonfiction works. So far, everything I've done has been art related, which is great. Like, so Evil Tender kind of became this resume, kind of.
Yeah.
Because whenever I approached you about writing for content, I could just send you, like, here's 2 or 3 interviews I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
When I was writing for Juxtapoz, I kind of did the same thing. And then now, like, people are reaching out to me, like 10 years later, which is nice. I've been asked to write the forward for a few art books.
Yeah, great.
So that's been fun, So, like, I guess I know.
You're a writer.
Yeah. but I also think, like, that's but then also, like, okay, at Upper San Jose, I was a communications manager, so maybe I'm I'm a marketing guy, maybe I'm a copywriter. I can do all that stuff.
Right.
And it's really fun.
It's kind of funny because, right, yeah, so, and I think of writing, right, any art form, even like that, for writing articles and doing interviews and kind of creative narratives and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might be looked down by a novelist, right? A novelist might look down on that of, like, oh, they're just doing this for money, right? So it's interesting that you're living kind of, in some way, that kind of Evil Tender kind of paradox, right?
Exactly. And I feel like that's the spot where, I don't want to say most people, but to go into a creative field, like, I've worked as a photographer's assistant doing, like, advertising stuff. I worked at a recording studio as a sound engineer. and there's like so many of those jobs where they're not all about like there's not much money,
Yeah.
and everybody wants the job too, even though
Yeah.
like you're like, wow, I'm really strong, I'm really hooked on this job that I kind of want to get out of, but I kind of want to stay because everybody else wants it.
Right. Yeah. 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 Like how great to be a sound engineer
I
and
know,
like,
I know
wait a
exactly. Like,
second, these hours suck.
yeah, the hours suck to get called in late, and you're working on like, oh, the thing I worked on will be shown during the Super Bowl. I'm like, I don't get paid extra for that.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm still living in a studio apartment, so
Right. Yeah.
and you kind of feel like, wait, this I wanted to do art stuff, and it's kind of creative, but it's
Yeah.
wasn't able to play as much as I wanted to, and I feel like a lot of people, even these illustrators who they
Mm-hmm.
have personal projects they want to take on, um, but they also have to pay their bills. So they're like, okay, I will take that toy box
Commission.
design, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I'll do a commission, or I'll sell my originals, or yeah. So they got it. Everybody has their little niche,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I just saw something. I can't even remember what it was, but it was some kind of thing. And the person asked them like, you know, like, what do you want to be or something like that. And they said, successful or something
yeah,
along those lines. And then the person said, oh, that's what it was. It was like the Versace series. And he said something like that, wanted to be successful. And his mom said, the only way that you are successful is through hard work. Right. And I think that's the thing that people, especially when it comes to creative, they just think it is plain, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah. And it is enjoyable. Like, so like you're interviewing somebody and you're writing, but there's an aspect of it that's still toil, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just wrote an article. There's an artist, Matt Griffin, from Ireland, and he does a lot of sci-fi stuff, and he's been getting into NFTs, so doing like,
NFTs.
yeah, non-fungible tokens.
Okay. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I've been working on this article, and I was like, because it's Evil Tender, I kind of set my own schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I can be like, I can tell myself I'm gonna publish on Monday, but if I don't get it done, I can do it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But and it's not even a long article, but I just wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it because yeah, and it was work, and I was like frustrated. I think it
Yeah.
came out okay, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was still fun. But
Right. Yeah. It's more fun when it's over, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. When I can read it back, like after the first draft is written, and you can read it back and go, okay, I know what to change. I have something to work with.
Yeah.
But when you're
Yeah.
just trying to get those first words down, it can
Yeah.
take some time.
It's that cycle, right? I mean, like the idea of the new project, the new thing, right? You're excited about this person, whatever, and that's super exciting. Then you get into it, and then once you have to whittle it down to produce it, that's the
Hmm.
yuck. And then when you're done with it, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I'm never going to do this again. And then you go, wait a second, that was like really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's
So
like,
weird.
yeah, I was thinking about that with because I'm hoping once everything opens back up again. Um, I was talking to you about it before last year or a year and a half
Hmm.
ago. Was trying to do some events in San Jose,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's one of those things where like, yeah, it's really hard work just to get things going, but once it's there and it's happening, it's like so fun to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, because
So then, yeah, we
you
haven't
haven't
had
been,
a
yeah, that you
party.
haven't
Yeah.
been able to have your content parties.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it.
Yeah, even the first one with lockdown was that story that you did with Carrie Ann
Oh,
Atano,
oh yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, that's
That was the
yeah.
first lockdown, and that you did that article, that interview with her, and that was the first time we did an online pickup party, which
Hmm.
was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm over it.
And after four, how's it been?
I,
Yeah,
yeah,
five
we
now.
actually we only did two. We've only done two online parties, but the funny thing is going into COVID. I don't know if you're like this too. I'm way more of just an in-person guy. Like if I'm gonna
Hmm.
even like normally, even if I have to have a meeting, I'll say, well, let's meet for coffee. Do you know what I mean? Rather than like an
Yeah,
email or. So have not been excited about being involved in Zoom at all, right? Or even
yeah, yeah.
events and concerts online. I just haven't really participated much. What
Yeah,
about
it's.
you? Or
I mean,
how
uh,
do you?
I'm. I haven't done many Zoom things. My wife does them all the time. She's a very, very social animal,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like I always felt like I was super introverted. Like I get my energy by being home. I like being alone. I like being home and alone. Um,
Yeah.
but then after, with given that as the only option, I'm starting to, realize like, you know what? Like, no, I miss just for no reason. Like, okay, yeah, like Daniel wants to talk. Yeah, I'll just
Let's
drive
get
up
a
to San
drink.
Jose. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'll just drive up from Gilroy, hang out in San Jose. Oh, and then when I'm there, I can chat with David Ma over the Fountainhead, and there's like, it's
Yeah.
fun, and like that's not an option anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because I would consider you to be a pretty social person.
Yeah, but
But I,
the
yeah.
but the Zoom stuff, we did a few little happy hour things at the beginning. We're
Yeah.
like, oh, let's Zoom with friends and have a drink, and then
Yeah.
I I think my wife still sets them up, but I don't really attend.
Yeah. I
And
did a
nothing wrong
couple.
with it. I just can't focus.
Yeah.
And so, and you know what? Like it is fun. We did this one around Christmas time. We have my wife's college friends in San Diego. I forget what happened. It was around my son asked about what Hanukkah was, and we're like, "Oh, Hanukkah, it's Jewish holiday. There's the menorah," and he's like, "Oh, okay. How does it work?" And we're like,
Oh,
"Oh,
cool.
let's call Evan and Daniela." So we did like a Zoom kind of Hanukkah explanation for him. Like
Yeah.
they showed
Cool.
him that like their sons showed like our kids were about the same age, and the kids got on the screen and like showed him how to play with a dreidel.
Oh, yeah.
Explained like they lit the menorah, and it was just like, okay, like that was something super cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really liked. So yeah, like Zoom has its places.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we've also been doing a lot of um, like we sit on the front porch and set up a table and a tent on the lawn,
Yeah.
just because. But
And do you have
have people.
and people walk by in your neighborhood and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, we're friends with everybody on our street, so they'll just like walk by and then maybe have a drink with us, and it's to the point now where like the kids are pretty like they never really had a trouble with masks. They're 6 and 7, so now like they know when people comes over,
Yeah.
they stay back, they wear their masks, they stay on the porch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where that is. But
Yeah.
I got my second shot. My wife just got her
Oh,
second
cool.
shot today.
Right on. So, let's this intersection between like art, commercial art
Mm-hmm.
versus fine art. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, like I'm really fascinated. Like I mean, you even fine artists, right? They end up
Mm-hmm.
getting put on postcards and bumper stickers and T-shirts, right? So
Yeah, I think the with illustration, you're one. It's a job, and you're telling somebody else's story using
yeah,
your own tools.
hmm
And fine art, I mean, fine art can do that too, but it's not. But you're telling your own story through your whatever your medium is.
yeah,
Um, I think with illustration, I just find like that's. I'm just because I was always fascinated by book covers and magazine covers and toy
yeah,
boxes and stuff like that. And you're like, and
yeah,
then you get older and you realize, wow, somebody painted that, someone drew that,
yeah,
someone got hired to draw He-Man, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, right, yeah,
Um, and maybe like the fine art stuff, it was always, even though I went to art school, was always like just felt because you don't really see it as I feel like illustration that you see it every day and everybody sees it every day, whether they know it or not.
right,
Um, Fine art, I think sometimes maybe the turn off for fine art to me for fine art is I like things that don't have to exist only in one spot. And I feel like with fine art,
mm,
it's the museum, it's the galleries, which is fun.
yeah,
Um, and then I don't know, there's some kind of like what you're saying about writers like writing for a magazine and in the internet versus a novelist who might like feel some
yeah,
sort of elite part of who they are. And I feel
yeah,
like fine artists probably think about that about illustrators because I do follow a lot of fine artists and that kind of writing stuff.
yeah.
And a lot of it focuses on like the money. I think anything that just focuses on the money is really a turn off for me.
Which
You
is
read
kind of
about
funny. right?
Yeah.
Because you think that the commercial artist is the one who's doing it for money, but in
Yeah.
the fine art world, the value and the status and the validation is
Yeah.
how much can they sell it at a auction or a gallery, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of funny how much the money is the validation, for
Yeah.
yeah,
And at the same time, like there's, especially when people are talking about like I see artists talking about how to like value their art, like what's the price point? And because you don't want it to be so low that it's embarrassing or too high that no
yeah,
one's going to buy it.
yeah,
That's what I also like about illustration. It's just, I won't say that there's a standard, but it's like, it's affordable because they want people to have it.
yeah, yeah,
Like if, I want anybody to be able to have it. Like the times I've done gallery shows, I really try to keep the prices affordable.
yeah,
So you can just pop in and be like, oh, hey, this is cool. Yeah, I got $40.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then also have like the original drawings and maybe a few paintings there that for the more collector person.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. It is interesting because I think especially like because I do photography and
Yeah, yeah.
seeing the change that happened, even especially with like the from Irving Penn and Richard Avedon, like the fashion photographers and stuff like that, right? Who
Hmm.
started out being very much commissioned by the magazines, even Annie Leibovitz, right, with Rolling Stone. Like
Hmm.
you're getting hired to go do this, but then those images have turned around and are in the art galleries,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing is like, what is the delineation between commercial and fine art? Like where, is that, I think it's more blurred now that we're such a consumer culture in a way, right?
Hmm.
But
Exactly.
I guess the real thing is the skill, right?
Yeah. Like there's a good example. Like there's a book publisher called the Folio Society, and what they
Uh,
do is they take classic books and they make them like into like these collectible books. So it'll be like I can't think. No, listen, I'm not thinking of anything. But like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and
yeah,
they'll make like they'll design like a slipcase for it. It'll be hardcover, and they'll hire an illustrator to like just totally do up the book, and it's designed to the end of everything.
yeah, yeah,
And they do books like that. And a lot of their artists they get are I've been finding because sometimes I'll go there to see if because they're really good at finding new artists.
hmm,
Um, but they had one where a painter. I only knew he was like I only knew him as a fine artist, but he ended up doing a couple. He did a The Great Gatsby for them, and
oh, cool,
his paintings are like big and like really they seem like wow, how would you have the time? Like if you're an illustrator, how would you have a time? Or if you're a fine artist, how do you have the time
yeah,
to paint each like 11 pieces? But I'm like, oh, he's also this is also his job. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. So like
yeah,
that's where that's where it does kind of it can go back and forth where you have an artist who can have a fine art gallery show and then also end up doing album covers or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because also not all of them do the same exact thing. Like some don't really handle typography, so they'll just hand off the artwork and someone else will do that stuff.
yeah.
So like wow, like there's room for everybody.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even when you think about it, like a lot of people who have, even like in the graffiti realm, where they start out with graffiti, but then now they've turned into doing T-shirts and clothing brand, or you know what I mean.
Yeah,
That there's always the. I mean, the reality is, you can love your craft, but you still gotta make money. you
yeah,
gotta you gotta eat.
yeah, and that's the hard part. And um, I realized that a little bit too late, but because when I was in college, I went to the Academy of Art in San Francisco,
Yeah.
and I had been going there because they offered like summer schools for junior high and high school, so I've been going there since then.
Oh wow.
Um, and I just assumed I would go there, and I went um, to major in fine art printmaking, and it was super fun. And then about 2 years in, I realized like because some of the students were amazing, like the older students there were awesome, and I was so impressed by them. And then once they would graduate, I noticed a trend of
Yeah.
those recent graduates working at the printing
At
lab
Academy.
or somewhere in
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, that's not a really And at the same time, everyone's asking me like, "What are you going to do for work? What are you going to do for work?" And I was like, I don't know." So I
Yeah.
switched. So that's whenever I switched to film. So I was like, I'll just do film because that's
That makes lots of
it's
money. Everybody,
well,
yeah.
because I was like, there's lots of different jobs I can write, and at the time, like I was recording bands, so I knew how to do that. So I was like, oh yeah. And then that worked out, and then that kind of turned into advertising because I
Yeah.
started taking a lot of. I ran out of all the classes there, so I started taking like copywriting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, it's funny. I know that experience too. Just like seeing art schools and private schools, and then seeing, wait a second, like all the alumni are working here. So does that mean there's no?
Yeah,
It's
like
like this
what are you gonna?
machinery. Yeah,
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 and that's cool. Like I don't I wouldn't put I wouldn't I don't turn that I don't look down on that. It's just like that's not what I wanted to do.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then
Cool.
so I had to make a decision.
Yeah. So then, for you, do you have kind of like a guiding philosophy of life? Like what drives you?
Um, philosophy of life. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just always be nice.
That's a good one.
Like that can never go. That never goes wrong. Try to be as helpful as you can. Like I think that's kind of a philosophy of Evil Tender too. Is just um, if you can help people out, like, and sometimes it's sharing their work or
Yeah,
getting them in touch with someone else.
yeah,
And it doesn't hurt to be an example for my kids. That's another thing. It's like, oh yeah, I have kids. They're watching what I'm doing.
yeah, yeah. That's cool.
But
Yeah. So then, how's it been? What have you learned about yourself this last year? We've all kind of had this little petri dish of introspection and not so much solitude, especially if you have two young kids.
yeah,
but
yeah.
but yeah, what kind of has been revealed about yourself? What have you learned about yourself this last year?
I was kind of thinking like I would have learned more or
Yeah,
changed or grown.
yeah,
I don't know if I have.
yeah,
I mean, the first thing is the fact that I always assumed like being home all the time would be awesome,
hmm,
and I'm naturally introverted, so I thought like, oh, this is going to be great. I can just sit home and just focus and get in tune with myself and all that. Really do some thinking.
yeah,
But then I realized, oh yeah, like I mentioned, like I miss going out for no reason.
yeah,
Like I miss throwing events and focusing on stuff like that. It's kind
yeah.
of being stuck home is kind of especially because at the beginning of COVID, I was starting to ramp up that event stuff with Evil
Right.
Tender
Yeah,
because it was like there's a time when I left Opera San Jose and I was like, okay, now I can 100% focus on Evil Tender, and I was thinking I forget what they're called. There's those storefronts on Third, I think, or right next to San Pedro.
oh yeah, the
Yeah,
moments. Yeah,
yeah, so there's those, and I was like, okay, so I applied for one of those. I was just talking to because I was like, oh, I can set up like a poster shop here,
yeah,
and I can just to be out and about and meet everyone.
yeah,
Like so, I had applied to that. I don't know even know if they had if they had gotten back to me at all. And then I was talking to people about spaces for events, and I was going to do something at the Winchester Mystery House,
yeah. That's right.
like all through Evil Tender. So it was like I was really pushing that, and then have it all like, oh, okay, well I can't. And then that
Yeah,
was trying to do that kind of thing and be more of a freelance graphic designer,
yeah, yeah,
kind of like doing what I was doing at Opera San Jose, but just doing it for other people. And that was kind of starting to I was getting people responding.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
and
then,
then
what's the plan for you coming out of COVID? Are you going to look back to get kind of looking to ramp up to get some events kind of going, or
I don't know if it's I don't know when seems like there's going to
yeah,
be a point where it's just too soon. Like I would
yeah,
love to start contacting people now because but even if they say, oh yeah, we can book you a spot here in December, are people
right,
going to want to go out in December?
yeah,
Like just
yeah,
because the venues are ready doesn't mean people are ready to go out.
right, totally.
Um, I actually hired a business coach.
Oh, cool.
So I have she's focuses on like the creative sector. So a lot of her clients are like writers, dancers, just
Yeah.
kind of illustrators, just artists like that. So, and it's kind of, and our talks have been kind of about like, okay, because yeah, I did kind of start Evil Tender as just like a fun project, but now it's like putting out posters and traveling. There's money going out, but also money coming in. I'm like, oh, I actually have a business. I accidentally made a business.
Accidentally made a business. Yeah, that's the best kind of business to have.
Exactly,
Yeah.
And it's super fun. So like that's one thing I've been trying to spend more time on. Like, oh, I should have a calendar of like what I was saying. Like, okay, should I have a calendar of how often I post versus how often I release a poster versus newsletters, social media posts, like managing all of that you would for a business. Because Evil Tender for me has always been like my play area. Like if I don't feel like writing right now, I don't have to. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, that's cool, but it's time to actually
go to the next level.
Yeah, go to the next level. And I think that's just doing like those basic admin stuff that like any other business would have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay, like how do I, automated emails for when someone buys a post, which I don't, I haven't done. Have I done it yet? Just like someone buys a poster or looks at a poster and you send them an email saying like, oh, you left something in your cart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, do I want to do that? Like, that's what businesses do, but people can always delete the emails. So that's, I try to be mindful of how people are going to react to that kind of stuff, to like the
user end.
Yeah. Because at some places, like at the opera, like it's expected.
Totally. Yeah.
But with
you're kind of in the little conundrum then, where Evil Tender is somewhat of a art project, but then to go to the next level, you have to sell out. It's come full circle. Circle.
I don't know if I don't know if it's selling out or it's just like but
not selling out.
It's not. I don't know if it's but it is. Okay, like.
But
be mindful. But be mindful of like, okay, how much inventory is in this, like in the store? Because really, it's like turned into the writing doesn't make the money; it's the selling the posters that makes the money.
Sure, yeah.
And I like doing that part too, but it's it's like talking to printers, ordering supplies, shipping. It's all things like, which I think at some point I'd like to hire someone to do that part.
Yeah, all that technical stuff.
Well, just like like I'll deal with the printer and all that kind of, and the artist. But once the posters get here, I'll need someone, because I have to unpack them and number them, and then when orders come in, ship them out.
Yeah,
all those little things that I ended up doing. Like I ended up doing it like at midnight.
Right, exactly. But that's the way. That's the way every business kind of starts, right? Is like, especially when you're doing something like you're doing it. You do everything, right? So you're doing the interviewing, you're doing the writing, you're doing the posting of that, you're doing the promotion of that, you're doing the posters, you're doing the sell. Then you put together the events, and you know what I mean? And when it's so new, it's great and exciting. Yeah. But then once, I remember, I was thinking some of the articles, I did the photos, I did the writing, and then I did the layout, and then I did all the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh my gosh. I'm so happy to have writers and other photographers, because I think the thing is like too, like even like you said, like Evil Tender is like a cheerleader for the working artist, right? And I think that's the thing is like, if you keep that goal in mind, and I have to do that with the magazine, is that the magazine's not about me expressing myself. It's like, how do I shine a light on the local artist? You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're doing that on an international level for illustrators and other artists, Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I try to do.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's at a good spot. I just, time to ramp up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I think what you're doing is great. Like I said, there is a part of me that's jealous.
Well, you're doing something very, like I think we're doing very
similar.
Specific things. Yeah. Similar things. And just as specific,
Yeah.
San Jose does have a lot to offer, and that's one thing I'm curious about. Is after COVID, we're free to walk about the cabin.
Yeah.
How is
What's still
my
standing?
main, what's still standing, and how it's available be different? Because just from my short experience, actually, even with Opera San Jose, because at Opera San Jose, I would have them, I would have their name to be like, oh, Opera San Jose wants to do something here.
Right. Yeah.
Even with them, it's hard. It was hard in San Jose to get venues to kind of. I mean, I don't know, because just being one guy, I think a lot of them want to do like corporate events and big events.
Sure.
So anything that's out of the ordinary,
yeah,
they have to talk. They always have to talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
But I just wonder, like, okay, like I wonder how some of these spaces that may be empty or may just been shut down, like how are they gonna welcome back the public?
Yeah.
That'll
be interesting. I mean, I did see some stuff even on the news. They're talking about, it was like wedding planners and stuff, but but just that because there was so many things on hold, now they're looking for the future, and they're overbooked because people who had delayed all these kind of like, especially like weddings, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who delayed it because they want to have it in person, now they're all trying to chomp at the bit to get it. So these venues and stuff like that are able to kind of like jack up their prices now, right? So it's kind of like feast or famine, right?
Yeah.
So a year of holding on by your fingernails, and then now the floodgates are going to open up, and then, which is interesting because we talked about even like what you like learned over the last year. I'm the same with you. Is like, I thought I would have made more kind of progress and self-discovery, but it didn't. And I heard people even talking at the beginning of like COVID, oh, this is so great. The earth is, it's quiet. The earth is restoring itself, and we're going to learn such great lessons. And I don't know if I'm skeptical, but I was thinking the whole time, I was like, no, as soon as the gates open up, everybody's going to return back to where they were.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Probably at some point. Yeah. So, cool. Well, I do hope that the gates open up and you and I can go have a drink at Fountainhead.
I know. Are they open?
I think, they are actually. You know what? We have to do that because they are doing. You can get a beverage and hang outside.
In the front, in the back area too, or just the front area?
Yeah, in the back, in the front, they got the parklets. I guess you haven't been downtown to see like they put a bunch of parklet type things out there. So. Yeah, so nice. Let's do that. Let's talk after this and get a date on if you're coming up this way.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for talking. Thanks for helping out with the magazine.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love Evil Tender, and I'm jealous. Thanks for taking time and talking.
Thanks for having me, man.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
To find out more about Chris and Evil Tender, go to his website, eviltender.com, and follow him on Instagram at eviltender_. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creatives. This episode's music is Tang by Chris Emond, who is featured in issue 13.2. Follow him on Spotify at Chris Emond and on Instagram at chris.emond, as well as his record label, Orange Label Records.